Okay, we're back on the record. In the matters of the people of the state of Michigan versus Kathleen Bearden, Amy Fascinello, John Haggard, Marianne Henry, Michelle Lundgren, and Michonne Maddock, council of parents.
Good afternoon, LaDonna Logan on behalf of the people.
Good afternoon, Taylor Fino on behalf of the people. Good afternoon, Your Honor, Mary Chartier on behalf of John Haggard, who's seated to my right.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Kurt E. Kraus on behalf of Mr. Haggard, who's also to my right.
Nicholas Sonberg on behalf of Michonne Maddox, who's present in the courtroom.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. George Brown from Marianne Henry, which is to my left. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Jared Coger on behalf of Kathy Burden.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. George Danini, also on behalf of Kathy Burden.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Paul Stavlin appearing on behalf and with Ms. Fascinello, who is seated behind me.
Good afternoon, Dwayne Sullivan, on behalf of Michelle Lundgren, who is again appearing via Zoom.
Thank you. Ms. Lundgren, you can hear us? Thank you. Okay, we're ready to continue with our next witness. Any preliminary matters we should address before the people call their next witness?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Call your witness.
This time people will call Investigator Howard Shop.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury.
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can have a seat.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And where do you work?
Michigan Attorney General's Office, Criminal Investigation Division.
And were you assigned to investigate the Republican certificate of votes for the 2020 presidential election?
Yes.
Okay, when were you assigned to that investigation?
About December 28th, 2022.
And how do you begin that investigation, sir?
I began by looking at the document in question, by looking at the depositions for the J6 and any other documents that may relate to that. I looked at where the document was mailed from. I reached out to the Secretary of State, Michigan Secretary of State, the National Archives, the U.S. Senate. I began conducting interviews and gathering facts and evidence.
And just to go back to where you started, you said you started with the document itself. Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you. Hand you what has been admitted as People's Proposed Exhibit 14. When you say the document, are you able to tell us if that is the document that you're talking about?
Yes.
And you stated that you reached out to the United Postal Inspection Service?
Yes, the inspector, U.S. Postal Inspector.
Okay. And what was why were you reaching out to them?
Well, the document was received by the National Archives, so it was sent through the mail. And so we were trying to determine where it was sent from and any information that could be obtained from the time it was sent.
And you said you reached out to the National Archives and where else?
The National Archives and the U.S. Senate.
And why were you doing that? Why were you doing that?
To verify that they received the copies.
And this was all part of your investigation into the document itself and how it ultimately was delivered to the National Archives?
Yes.
Okay. And about how long was your investigation, sir?
About 7 to 8 months.
And when you reached out to the Michigan Department of State, what, if any, information were you looking for from that department?
To see if they had received a copy as well.
And were you able to acquire any other documents as it related to the 2020 election from the Department of State?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of documents did you receive from the Department of State, sir?
I received the original Democratic slate of electors and a certificate of ascertainment.
And those were for the year 2020?
And I also asked for 2016.
Now, as it related specifically to the people who have alleged to have signed the document, did you do anything to investigate the signatures themselves?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I've contacted the Michigan State Police Crime Lab. They have a questionable document section where they conduct handwriting signature analysis.
And what do they need in order to analyze signatures?
Known comparison and the document itself.
And were you able to obtain any known comparisons?
Yeah.
And did you submit those to the Michigan State Police along with the document?
I did submit them in certain submissions. Other submissions, they have a database on file using the Secretary of State driver's license database that they can pull up and a number of different signatures related to the person in question.
During your investigation, did you receive reports from the Michigan State Police regarding the analysis of the question signatures on Exhibit 14 versus known signatures of the suspected signings?
Yes.
Do you know about how many reports you received?
There's a total of 5 submissions that I made and 5 returns. Each submission may have included more than one handwriting analysis request.
Permission to approach?
Yes.
The hands you would have been marked as people's proposed exhibits 19 through 24.
Okay.
And I'm just going to ask you to look at those briefly. And do you recognize those documents?
I do.
And what are those, sir?
They're the laboratory report from the Michigan State Police Forensic Lab.
Your Honor, I would move to admit people's proposed exhibits 19 through 24 pursuant to Michigan compiled law 76611B.
Is there an objection?
There is an objection, Your Honor. I understand the statute and what it allows. I think that that statute is wildly unconstitutional because there's no way that we can cross-examine the author of that report at this stage of the proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Your objection is noted. Any other join in an objection?
I would, Judge, but I also, could I see the documents? I don't know what's marked what.
I'll join the objection as well, Your Honor.
So Matt, Michelle, wanted you to join the objection.
Marion Henry joins. And Sean Maddox.
All set?
There's a couple.
Okay, the objections are that the documents being admission under the statute would be unconstitutional The statute is what the statute is, and until the Supreme Court or another court strikes it down, the records come in.
Thank you.
So the objections overruled.
And Your Honor, pursuant to the statute, the documents come in on their own without testimony, but just to expand the record, these exhibits are under the laboratory number LS 23-1382, records 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They are all authored by Mackenzie Way, MC, KENZIE, WEYH, a forensic scientist of the Question Document Unit at the Michigan State Police. And the sum and substance of the reports are that in record 1, Analyst Way was able to identify the signatures on the question document as Kent Vanderwood, William Hank Choate, Marianne Hint. On record 2, Analyst Way was able to positively identify the signatures of Timothy King and James Renner. On record 3, Analyst Way was able to positively identify the signature of Rose Rook. On record 4, the analyst was able to positively identify the signature of Kathleen Burton. And on records 5 and 6, the analyst was able to positively identify the signatures of Stanley Grove. Permission to publish to the court.
Permission granted.
Now, you testified that you did endeavor to verify the signatures as it related to the purported signees. Did you do anything else as far as your investigation?
Some I had to gather additional documents at the request of the lab technician. They've required additional documents to review in order to come to a conclusion about the signature.
And outside of just verifying the signatures, were you able to gather any other evidence, either close in time to the signing of the document or after the signing of the document as it related to the defendants?
There were some media reports, some social media, I would include that with media, just from the defendants indicating that they had signed the document.
Now, earlier in this exam, I believe on December 13th, and you were present in the courtroom, correct?
Pardon me?
You were present in the courtroom on December 13th, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall a video being played, People's Exhibit 9?
Yes.
Do you, how was that video obtained?
You're referring to, because I don't remember, there's been so many exhibits.
The YouTube
The
video.
YouTube video, that was obtained through open source media.
And permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a series of still photos that have been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 15. Each photo is individually labeled with the exhibit number and letter, but just let me know if you've looked through those.
Okay. Through.
And are you able to tell us if those stills are accurate, I guess, still photos from that YouTube video that was People's Exhibit 9?
Yes.
People would move to admit people's proposed exhibit 15.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted without objection.
Take those back. I'm gonna hand you people's proposed exhibit 17 and ask you to look through those. Permission to publish?
Yes.
I don't know if you want and deflect for that, but sorry.
Okay, I've looked through them.
And do you recognize those, sir?
Yes.
And what are they?
Again, additional stills from the video.
And would those accurately reflect this still images from People's Exhibit 17 that was played earlier today?
Yes.
People would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 17.
Any objection?
No objection, thank you.
People 17 is admitted without objection.
You stated that there were other videos that you obtained on open source media, is that correct?
Yes.
Is one of those videos, after December 14th?
Yes.
And do you recall who was in that video?
There's Michonne Maddock and Marianne Sheridan.
And what was the topic of conversation in that video?
It was about the election and voting or casting votes as a slate of electors for Donald Trump and vice president.
And did you preserve that video?
Yes.
Hearing at this time, the people would move to admit and publish People's Proposed Exhibit 18.
Any objection?
Objection, Your Honor. It's hearsay.
Did you want to respond to the objection?
Well, it's going to only be used against the declarant, which his client is not a declarant. I'm moving for its admission against defendant matter only.
So I make the same objection, understanding that they could be used against one defendant, but these aren't statements that could be used against any of the other defendants that aren't making any statements. As long as the Attorney General agrees that that's the case, then that's fine.
Attorney General agrees to follow the rules of evidence.
All right.
Your objection is overruled. Proceed.
Permission to publish?
Yes.
Thank you. Share my audio. Okay. Oh, here. Your Honor, for purposes of expediting this, the video is going to start in progress at about 1 minute and 13 seconds in when the defendant begins to speak. The entirety of the video has been admitted though.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Michonne Maddock.
And I'm Marianne Sheridan.
And now tell us what actually happened on the ground. You went to cast your votes. What happened?
Well, we first decided to gather the electors because we've been working with a lot of the legal teams from the Trump campaign since the election, just on a lot of the voting irregularities. And so they told us to gather our electors and head towards Lansing. And we learned very fast that day that our governor had shut down our entire Capitol system. So not only was the Capitol shut down, even from lawmakers, but the House office buildings were shut down, the Senate office building was shut down, even their parking structures were closed. So we gathered our 16 Republican electors at our Michigan GOP office, which is just a few blocks from the Capitol, and we held our caucus. We certified our ballots for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, and then we gathered our group together. We were escorted by 3 or 4 of the state representatives. We had about 6 state representatives that were in support of this, and they marched us to the Capitol. Now, these are lawmakers who always have access to the Capitol. It's really, it's the people's house. But when we got up to the door, we had a rude awakening. We were kind of expecting it. I gave it about 50-50. We had our certified ballots in our hands, but we were denied any type of access from the floor, even though we introduced ourselves as electors here on the day that we're supposed to certify our ballots as electors in the Senate office floor.
So we were following U.S. Constitution law and federal statutes. In Michigan, however, though, you're supposed to take care of this business in the Capitol. So that's a Michigan statute that we tried to execute, but we were blocked from doing that by our governor. And
With police.
With police. So what I think is so interesting is in 2016,
I'm gonna stop it there because it goes on for about another 4 minutes. But again, the entirety of the video has been admitted as evidence.
And I'm gonna check, the rule of completeness allows for context. And if we don't play the whole video, we don't get the context.
Well,
The same objection, Your Honor.
the rule, I'm sorry.
Oh, just the same objection.
Anybody else join in the objection?
I join in. Thank you.
Kathy Burton, does, Your Honor.
Yes.
Well, the rule of completeness says that I can't take it out of context, and the entirety of the video is admitted. So the entirety of the context is there, but I can play any portion that I want.
I agree. I guess for the benefit of the court. How long is the video?
It's about 6 minutes total.
We're at 3 minutes. We might as well go to the next 3.
Okay.
We'll play the video.
these same electors, who were Republican electors, there were no protections whatsoever set up for them. And supposedly this is what the governor had told, at least the media, is why they had shut everything down.
Yeah, they talked about
Yes.
bomb threats and,
Yes.
all kinds of violence was being projected. There was absolutely nothing at all happening at the Capitol. There was maybe 10 protesters from either side outside. They had the entire Capitol surrounded by police, and we know very well
Yeah.
that the entire purpose of shutting down this entire system was just to keep 16 national electors just trying to exercise our constitutional rights, because we believe our election is not fair in Michigan. We still have many questions unanswered, and what we really did was just exercise our constitutional duty so that our legislature can now perform their constitutional duty and further investigate all these voter irregularities and make voters confident again in Michigan about our elections, because we're not now.
Now, if you're just, I guess we have to wrap up here, but if you're to leave one message for our viewers on what happened and what the path forward is, what would you tell them?
Gosh, we are just in prayer for the president. I'm so grateful for organizations that are stepping up to continue this fight, because we really don't feel like a lot of Republican leadership is doing that. The path forward is constitutional law, which I'm not an expert in that. I'm just an expert on how to be an elector and how to speak for my president. And I know that if we don't get this right, if we don't figure out how to have safe elections again, we are going to have so many disenfranchised voters out there on both sides. This really shouldn't be a partisan issue. Democrats will never trust elections again either when we've won. And we won't ever trust elections again when their side has won. We need to get to the bottom of this cheating, which has probably been going on forever. It's just this time they overplayed their hand. We know that Donald Trump won Michigan.
Yeah.
And I guess just based on your own experience too, any last messages for our viewers?
Well, I just think that in Michigan, and this could even spread across the whole country, what we have seen come out of Antrim County in Michigan with the Dominion tabulators is horrific. and it needs to be taken seriously. And whether it's, let's just say you're from the group that thinks that, no, there's nothing went wrong there. They have to come out and assure us that every county in Michigan had a safe, fair, and transparent election. And unless they show us that, they're just destroying the confidence that voters have in any election
Yeah,
process.
when we hear of a 68% irregularity swing, and then we have leaders that just say, well, Dominion has come out and laughs at that and says that they haven't done anything wrong, we need a little bit more reassurance than that.
Okay, thank you for being on Crossroads.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Now, during your investigation, were you ever able to determine if as of December 14th, 2020, if there was a recount in progress in the state of Michigan?
I did not find any evidence of that.
Did you find any evidence that a recount had been requested in the state of Michigan as of December 14th, 2020?
No.
As of December 14th, 2020, were you able to determine in your investigation if the state legislators had taken any action as it related to the 2020 election?
Yeah.
And what was the result?
I spoke to Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, who indicated that
Objection hearsay.
Subject to same.
In your investigation, were you able to determine if any action was taken by the state legislators?
yeah,
And was any action taken?
yes,
What kind of action was taken?
there was a committee formed, referred to as the McBoom report, to investigate election fraud.
We can't talk about what was discussed, but at the conclusion of that committee, did the election results in the state of Michigan change for the 2020 presidential elections?
No,
As of December 14th, 2020, were you able to determine if there was any judicial action as it related to the 2020 election?
I did not have any evidence of that.
Now, we know that you acquired several videos via open source media. Did you require any other information as it related to the defendants that signed Exhibit 14?
There was the social media, or there was the video, of course, the social media posts, newspaper articles, various other media articles and whatnot that, where people had the defendants had made statements about signing the documents, the 2020 certificate of votes.
And how did you either obtain and or preserve those statements or posts?
Through a search warrant for Facebook accounts, Twitter accounts, cell phone. Well, that would be different. And then so that would come with a certification of records for that media.
Okay. Now, you stated that you had submitted several search warrants as it related to social media. Did you submit any other search warrants?
I did, but I left off one Instagram. I submitted a search warrant for his Instagram accounts as well.
Okay.
And to answer your question, yes, I did submit a request for additional search warrants.
Was it just for social media accounts?
No, there was cell phone call detail records.
And did you submit a search warrant to Thumb Cellular.
Yes,
And what is Thumb Cellular?
it's a cellular provider that just provides cell service like Verizon or AT&T.
And were you able to, well, did you receive records from Thumb Cellular?
I did.
And who were you seeking Thumb Cellular records for?
Miss Burdens.
And did those records contain text message content?
Yes,
And when you sent the search warrant, did you request that those records be certified?
yes,
Permission to approach, Your Honor? You may. And you a sheet that'll accompany people's proposed exhibit 26, but do you recognize that document, sir?
yes.
What is that?
The certification of records from Thumb Cellular.
And did that accompany the call records for Ms. Kathleen Burton?
Yes,
Your Honor, the people would move to admit people's proposed exhibit 25, which are the cell records from Thumb Cellular in their entirety for Ms. Kathleen Burton. And I'm moving to admit those pursuant to 902.11 as a self-authenticating certified document and 8036 as a business record.
Any objection?
Do you have that? Where is it?
It's digital.
Digital.
But I have to admit the whole thing in order to admit portions.
Well, I don't know if it's a business record.
Exhibit is digital, is what you're saying?
Yes. Because it's hundreds of pages. But pursuant to 1006, I have to admit the document in its entirety before I can admit summaries.
There's been a lot of correspondence. I just want to make sure, when was the written notice of the intent to offer this document provided under 902.11?
It was probably in December.
Okay, but not just the certification, but was there a written notice provided that it was coming in as a business record?
I'm pretty sure I sent an email to all the defense counsel in December listing all of the certified documents I intend.
Does anyone else recall getting that? Okay, I'm about to look really fast because I don't recall getting that, but I also know I was left off some emails at various points in time, as you know.
Pretty sure I did.
Well, it looks like they're looking up whether or not they received, but I don't see any other objections at this time. Or any objections, I should say. So your exhibit's admitted.
Thank you. I'm gonna hand you.
So, Your Honor, just if I may, though, I don't see a. Oh, no, I do. Never mind. December 11th. Thank you. Thank you.
You already have the first page of people propose exhibit 26. I'm gonna accompany that with the second page and ask you to look at that. And do you recognize that, sir?
yes.
And what is that?
This is text messages provided from Thumb Cellular for subscriber number. Would you like me to read that?
Yeah.
810-404-1833.
And is that the phone number that you requested certified records for from Thumb Cellular?
Yes.
And who is that number attached to, sir?
Kathy Burden.
And are you able to tell us that's a selection from the entirety of the records?
Yes.
And you have an extra copy, by any chance?
Of course. I'll let you see this one. Not sure if I moved for the admission of people's at 26, but if I did not, then I would so move.
You did, it was admitted.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just curious, how is this going to be published?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I mean, the court,
Obviously, you're gonna brief your argument anyway. Are you just planning or intending to publish it at that time? I'm assuming.
I think so. I think the court can read the document for itself, but I will have so
So this
follow-up
document
questions.
is what document that you just had him look at?
It is a portion of the certified records, but it's text message content.
Okay, so this pulls out the ones that you want
The
him to testify as to, or
Yes.
give testimony about. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, but I will ask some follow-up questions just to make it clear for the record about the document. Investigator Shock, are you able to kind of just explain the layout of that spreadsheet for us?
Yes, it's a series of rows and columns, sometimes referred to as a spreadsheet. There's a submit, timestamp, delivery, timestamp, source, destination, message text columns. And then on the horizontal rows, there's a series of dates, times, source and destination. The source and destination have phone numbers, and then there's content in columns E and F for message text.
And your understanding of the source column is that the sender or the recipient of the message?
The source would be the sender, destination would be the person that was sent.
And just looking at row identified as 2323, the source, would that be Ms. Burden, or is Ms. Burden the recipient?
No, the source would be Mrs. Burden.
And the phone number for the destination, could you read that into the record, please?
Yes, it's 1-231-342-2905.
And did you do any investigation as to the 231 phone number?
Yes.
And what did you do?
And I searched for that number through a couple of different law enforcement databases that we use to identify phone numbers. And I also looked at other evidence or information that I had on hand, also to determine or verify who that number would register to or belong to.
And ultimately, during the course of your investigation, were you able to identify the user of that 231 phone number?
Yes.
And who was that?
Mr. Haggard.
Would that be Mr. John Haggard?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. John Haggard.
I'm not going to ask you to read the text messages because the court can read, but I
Okay.
am going to take that and publish it to the court. Going back to your testimony about obtaining social media returns. Did you submit a search warrant to this parent company Meta as it related to defendant Michelle Lundgren?
Yes.
And did you receive a return for that?
Yes.
Was it certified?
Yes.
Permission to approach, Your Honor? Yes. For the record, you don't have to ask permission to approach the witness. I'm sorry, I'm just so used to asking. No worries. You're already there anyways. That is fair. I'm gonna hand you the first 2 pages of People's Proposed 28. I'm gonna ask you if you recognize those documents, sir.
I do.
And what are those, sir?
There's the certificate of authenticity of domestic records or certified certification of the records. And then there is Facebook return content.
Okay, and does that second page, which I believe is identified as page 1 for the meta records,
Okay.
does it identify the owner of those records or the user?
Yes.
And who is the user?
Michelle Lundgren.
And at this time, the people would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 27, which is a complete copy of the certified meta return for defendant Michelle Lundgren. Any objection?
Did you see what he has?
No. Which states? Right, so this is. No, it's one of these.
What, may I ask a question? Is that against, or are you trying to get that in for everyone or just?
No.
Okay, okay, great. That's terrific. That's. Okay. And was that
This
the
is just
same-
as to Lundgren, correct?
Just that's the Lundgren.
And was that the same with Ms. Burden?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Only the declarants.
Okay, great. I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay. And Your Honor, that is Exhibit 27, which I will have a digital copy for the court. It's the entirety of the records. And it's 27 submitted. And now I'm going to hand you People's Proposed Exhibit 27. We've already talked about the first 2 pages. Now I'm going to ask you to look at the 3rd page, which Meta identifies as page 4,369. And I ask you to look at the following pages after that. And do you recognize those, sir?
Yes.
And how do you recognize those?
This is the return I received from Meta regarding Mrs. Lundgren, Michelle Lundgren's.
And are those pages actually selections from the complete return?
Yes.
People would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibits 28. And I know you want to see them.
Their photos. Quick.
I have a jacket here, sir. Okay. Any objections to so far?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, People's 28 admitted. Looking at that page that Meta has labeled 4,369. Can you tell us what's at the top of that page?
It says Meta Platforms Business Record,
Oh.
page 469, and just beneath that is a photo. Would you like me to describe the photo?
Yes, please.
It shows a photo of, or depicts Mrs. Lundgren standing behind the Michigan GOP sign, says Michigan Republican Party. She's standing on the lawn. Behind her is the building, Michigan GOP headquarters at that time.
And is there a date for that post?
Yes. Uploaded 12/14/2020.
At what time?
I'm sorry, 1956. UTC.
Are you good at math?
So. I'm in law enforcement, so.
I'm a lawyer. I don't math. We'll just leave it at UTC.
Okay.
Okay. And is there a text that goes along with that photo, with the posting of that photo?
Yes.
What does it say?
In Lansing, fulfilling our constitutional right to protect our freedoms.
I'm going to ask you to look at the second page that Meta has labeled as 4,370. And you see a portion of text that is highlighted.
Could you repeat the page number again, please?
4,370.
Okay. Yes, there is.
Okay. And who is the poster of the highlighted text?
This is Michelle Lundgren.
And is there a question before that text?
Yes.
And who's the poster of that text?
Judy Smith.
What is the date of the question?
12/14/2020.
And what time?
23:29.
And what is the date and time of the post by Ms. Lundgren?
It is 23, well, the date is 12/14/2020, 23:37 hours UTC.
And what's the question?
The question is, did you get blocked from going inside? Question mark.
And what was Ms. Lundgren's post?
Yes, we did, period. One of the Trump attorneys stood up to the state police at the door and very politely explained that it was our constitutional right. ... But so what? Exclamation point. We had to turn back, period. It was awful, period. While the Democrats were inside casting, all caps, their electoral votes, period.
I'm going to ask you to turn to the next page that Meta has marked as 5,730.
Okay.
And there is a post that is not highlighted. You see that post?
Yes.
Who's the author?
This is Michelle Lundgren.
And what date and time was it sent?
Sent on December 14th, 2020 at 21:54 hours UTC time.
And what does it say?
It says, thanks, Tom, period. Just had a chance to respond back to you, period. As you probably know, comma, all but 2 representatives attended, period. But we had 2 alternatives show up, period. It was perfect, period. Other than we were not permitted to present our papers, did the Senate, period. We were blocked from entering the building, period. The Democrats entered the building, but we could not, period. There were no protesters to speak up, period. It was quiet It was very quiet and very cold, exclamation point.
And is there a second post on that page?
Yes,
And who is the author of that post?
Mrs. Michelle Lundgren,
And what is the date and time on that post?
December 15th, 2020. Time was 0223 hours UTC time.
And what is the highlighted portion?
That's there was a big Trump legal team present, period. They know what needs to be done, period. I was so proud to be in the midst of patriots, period. We signed all the necessary documents or docs, period. We took photos of all of us, period. We tried to enter the building, period. We were obstructed, period. But we did everything and we are all, excuse me, we did everything and we are well documented, period. Peace, period. M, period.
Thank you. Now, is it related to social media returns? Did you send a search warrant to Meta as it related to Amy Facinello?
Yes,
And did you receive a return?
yes.
First, I'm gonna hand you what has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 30, but I'm gonna draw your attention to the first 2 pages. You recognize those documents?
Yes.
And what are those, sir?
First document is the certification of records. Second document would be Meta Platforms business record for Mrs. Amy Fetchin.
And did those documents come with this with the return for the Meta records for Ms. Facinello?
Yes.
People would move to admit the entirety of the return for Ms. Facinello pursuant to 902.11 and 8036. It is in digital format as it is over 73,000 pages.
You're right. If could I have one here?
Please.
Yeah, of course.
What exhibit number is this? It's 29.
Yes.
Okay, so Agent, in regard to the certification that you received from Meta, it has on here an account identifier number, right? Does it in regard to this certification, does it have Ms. Facinello's name anywhere on it?
It's
The
on the
certification.
second page, the account identifier number. That's why they were provided together. You
This
look
is
at
this is
for
the
Target.
record, right? This is the certification. It's signed at the bottom, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
but
I
this
understand.
this number,
I understand. I understand.
I know.
When you submitted the search warrant to Meta,
Wait. What are we doing here? I'm moving to admit a document.
Yes,
Okay.
one dear.
all right,
Okay, I didn't hear that.
yeah. So I wonder why I was getting interrupted so much.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, on this certification, it's got a number. It does not say Amy Facinello's name anywhere, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you received a bunch of records as a result of it. Okay. You submitted a search warrant to obtain these records, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you specify this identifier number in your search warrant?
I would have to refer back to the search warrant on that, sir.
Okay. And you recall when it was that you submitted the search warrant?
Again, I would have to refer back to the search warrant.
Any idea?
Time 2023. I want to say July or August,
Okay.
maybe.
And how long was it before you got a response? Or this was the-
It wasn't that long, so it was, I would say, less than 30 days.
In order to, when you submitted the search warrant, did you receive any telephone calls prior to the production of these records?
Objection relevance.
Well, it goes to whether or not
Your question, the question was prior, did you receive any telephone calls
from Meta
from Meta?
before they produced these records. I'm referring to these records.
What is the relevance?
Relevant to connecting this identifier to Amy Fascinello.
I recognize that, but you said that you received any
Phone calls from
phone
Meta,
calls from Meta relative to that request.
right, the search warrant, before they produced these records. Like, did they discuss it?
Okay, the objection, I don't really think it's provides much value, but I'll allow you to ask the question.
Did you talk to them on the phone?
I don't recall, but perhaps if I did, it would be documented in a report. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there an objection to the exhibit being admitted?
No, Your Honor.
People's 29 is admitted.
Just for clarification of the record, the identification number on the certified certification is actually the target number on page 1 of the Met record. I would ask you to look at the remaining pages of People's Proposed Exhibit 20, Exhibit 30. Which are great. And let me know if you recognize those, sir.
Yes,
And how do you recognize those, sir?
it's a return from Meta Platforms for the account of Miss Amy Fascinello.
And those are selections from the document that was provided by Meta. Is that correct?
Yes.
People would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 30.
To the objection.
No, Your Honor.
People's 30 is admitted.
Thank you. Excuse me for sitting, but it makes it easier for me to see my laptop. I'm going to ask you to look at the third page, which Meta has identified as page 821.
Okay.
And the first highlighted post, do you see that?
Yes.
Who is the author of that post?
Amy Fascinello.
And what was the date and time of that post?
December 15th, 2020. The time was 01:57 hours UTC time.
And what was the post?
The Republican electors met at the MIGOP office today to vote for President Trump. Period. Laura Cox didn't even bother to say hello. Period.
I'm going to ask you to look at page 4. And I'm going to draw your attention to the highlighted post on that page. And Meta has identified that page as 1,146. Who is the author of that post?
Amy Fascinello.
And what is the date and time of that post?
December 14th, 2020. Time would be 23:34 hours UTC time.
And what is the post?
The post. Amy Fascinello commented on her own post. We voted and everything was notarized, period. However, The Capitol was closed per Whitler, and we weren't allowed in, period. When the fraud is revealed, as it is coming out today, comma, they can officially send our documents, period.
I'm gonna ask you to turn to the 7th page of that document. Meta has it identified as 17,451.
Okay.
I'm gonna draw your attention to the first post, the first highlighted post on that document. Who's the author
Mrs. Amy Facinello,
and the date and time?
December 15th, 2020, 00:37 hours, UTC time.
And what is the text of that post?
The highlighted or the whole?
The highlight.
Okay. We voted and had everything notarized, but they wouldn't let us into in the Capitol, period.
And the second highlighted post on that page, who is the author
Mrs. Amy Facinello,
and the date and time?
December 15th, 2020. I'm sorry, 00:55 hours, UTC time.
And what is the text of that post?
Chatfield and Shirkey are traitors, period.
I'm gonna have you turn to the 11th page of that document. Meta has it identified as 23,150.
I'm sorry.
23,150.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, the highlighted portion, unlike previous portions, this is a conversation, is that correct?
Yes.
And who are the posters in this conversation?
Author, Mrs. Amy Facinello, and author, Mrs. Michonne Maddox.
The first post in this conversation, what is the date and time?
First post date would be December 5th, 2020. Time is 20:58 hours, UTC time.
And what is the text?
Body is, have you received any communication about being an elector? Question mark. I have not gotten even a letter or a single phone call, period. I have zero idea what is happening, period.
The second post in that conversation, who is the author?
Mrs. Michonne Maddox,
And what is the date and time of that post?
December 6th, 2020. Time would be 01:22 hours, UTC time.
And what is the post?
Well, we are no longer electors, unfortunately.
The next post in that conversation, who is the author?
Mrs. Michonne Maddox,
And what is the date and time of that post?
December 6th, 2020. Time would be 01:22 hours, UTC time.
And what is the content of that post?
Only if the president had won Michigan.
Looking at the very next page, page 12 of that document, the meta page identified as being 23,151.
Okay.
Who is the author of that next post?
This is Michonne Maddox,
And what was the date and time that that post was sent?
December 6th, 2020. Time would be 01:23 hours, UTC time.
And what is the content of that post?
The Biden electors will be brought in.
Thank you. Yeah. Want me to staple these?
I've just been using paper clips. Thank you.
Thank you. During your investigation, did you send a subpoena to Meta Platforms to obtain a business record for Kenneth Thompson?
Yes,
And did you obtain a record for Mr. Thompson?
yes.
So I'm gonna hand you what has been marked as people proposed exhibit 32, but I'm just gonna draw your attention to the first 2 pages. Do you recognize that, sir?
Just to clarify, it was a search warrant, not a subpoena.
Oh, did I say subpoena? Yeah, it's been a long day. I'm sorry. I meant to search warrant.
Yes, I recognize them.
And how do you recognize that, sir?
It's return from Meta Platforms, a certification of records, and a select or a portion of page from Mr. Thompson's Facebook account.
And I'm going to move to admit to the certified copy of Kenneth Thompson's Facebook return pursuant to Michigan Rules of Evidence 90211 and 8036. This is also about 73,000 pages. And the portions that I expect to admit have no hearsay in them, but they're just I saw defendants standing, so.
Yeah, I guess first, may I see the selected portions, and then 2, perhaps the Attorney General's office can articulate while I'm doing that, why Ken Thompson's papers are being submitted in this round.
Because he was originally part of this round.
I see, okay.
But he's not part of this round, so,
Well, if you see the photos, you'll see better.
okay, then I'm gonna come take a look with George.
This was exhibit number what?
This is exhibit, the one that I moved for admission is exhibit number 31. Councils are looking at selections that have been marked as people propose exhibit 32.
So, Your Honor, I guess I don't have an objection necessarily, but it's feels a little odd to admit a document related to a defendant in the case when the defendant's not here, that defendant's lawyer is not here to lodge an objection. So for that basis, I would say that should come in when he's present.
Just pictures?
Yes, well, one, it's a certified document, so it's self-authenticating. There's no hearsay that I'm moving to admit as to these defendants, but he is charged in conjunction with these defendants, and the photos are related to the activity that has been testified to by numerous witnesses.
Was there an objection from other counsel? I know you looked at the photos. I didn't know if you had an objection.
I joined in Mr. Denini's. I was just looking at the 90211 notice, just because Ken Thompson isn't here and his lawyer isn't here. And I think we've known since December that, I believe, that's when we were last here, that Mr. Thompson was not going to be part of this grouping. So if the photographs needed to come in, they could come in through someone else.
Was Mr. Thompson the one that his attorney didn't appear the day we started? I think he was supposed to be here.
Yes.
So, and then the attorney was in the hospital. I have reservations too about admitting anything that his attorney is not here to review, like the other attorneys had the opportunity to review.
Well,
and possibly Gwadir, but if you're only admitting photos, is that what the issue is?
Yes, this is not being offered against Mr. Thompson. This, as an offer of proof, Your Honor, The photos are photos that were taken on December 14th outside the Capitol Annex, and then they were sent by Ken Thompson to defendant Matt.
Okay. So these are photos taken by defendant Thompson, sent to defendant Maddox that you want admitted, and they're certified matter records.
Yes.
There's also a relevance objection here. I mean, my client's not in the photograph, so, you know,
Yeah.
possibly
your
that,
client is.
right, so is he
Yeah.
in that one? Okay. Oh, well, that group one, sure, but not the ones out in the group one, but I mean, not the ones outside of the Capitol Annex.
The court can.
I've not seen the photo, so I don't know who's in what.
Right, but the point of this is, Your Honor, the group photo has already been admitted. We have videos from the Capitol Annex with people walking in. There have already been stills of the video that are in that have already been identified. So the relevance of this and the redundancy is, I think, highly questionable.
Are there other videos or photos here that we haven't already seen?
Yes. The group photo is just one of several photos that Mr. Thompson sent to Ms. Maddox.
How many photos do you have there?
About 10.
They're not 10.
So the group photo is a duplicate, and then the others are all outside the Capitol Annex, which again are videos and stills that we've already seen. Even if they're but even if they're posing a little bit differently, it's all from the same event.
Okay, and the purpose of this exhibit is to demonstrate what?
To identify the members of the conspiracy, because I still have to do that.
Okay, the exhibit's admitted. Thank you.
It's out of order, so I'm trying to put it back in order.
No problem, take your time.
And as with the other exhibits, Your Honor, all hearsay statements that were contained in the document have been redacted. Thank you. And you, what is the mark of people proposed exhibit 32? And do you recognize that document, sir?
Yes.
And what is that?
It's a certification of records from Meta, and then select text from Mr. Ken Thompson's Facebook account.
And were those selections part of the return that you received from Meta Records, well, Meta Platform?
Yes.
People would move to admit people's proposed exhibit 32.
I'm assuming it would be the same objection for 32. So the objection is noted, overruled, you can admit 32.
And as there are no posts to read, I would just move the publish to the court.
You can publish.
Now, I know you testified that you sent several search warrants to the Meta platform. Did you send any search warrants to Twitter?
Yes.
And did you send one specifically for Michonne Matt?
Yes.
Did you obtain any records as related to Ms. Matta?
Yes.
And were those accompanied by a certification?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you the first 3 pages of People's Proposed Exhibit 33, well, 34. But I asked you to look at those and let me know if you recognize those.
Yes,
And how do you recognize those, sir?
it's a certification of records from Twitter. Or I'll just read the description or bio. President, Michigan Conservative Coalition, 2020, Trump Elector, Ultra Mega, Trump Original, wife of State Representative at Matthew Maddock.
That's the bio
That's
that's provided with the profile.
Yes, it's provided with
And this is what you received when you specifically requested Twitter records for Ms. Michonne Maddox.
yes.
People would move to admit people's proposed exhibit 33, which is a complete certified copy of the Twitter return from Michonne Maddox. I'm moving to admit it pursuant to Michigan Rules of Evidence 90211 and 8036.
Any objections to People's 33?
No objection.
People's 33 is admitted.
I will hand you the remaining 9 pages of People's Proposed Exhibit 34. Do you recognize those documents, sir?
Yes, I recognize it.
And where do you recognize it, sir?
Select pages from Mrs. Michonne Maddox's Twitter account.
And is that in fact a conversation from the Twitter return?
Yes,
And you recognize that as being part of the complete return that you received from Twitter, that is now known as X.
yes.
People would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 34.
Any objections to People's 34? People's 34 is admitted.
Now, the conversation as it is laid out on that document, what chronology is it?
So it goes from probably the most recent date in 2022. It looks like the last page with 2020. So most recent to furthest.
So the conversation that is part of Exhibit 34, if I'm hearing you correctly, it starts with the last message and the first message is on later pages.
Yes.
Is that reverse chronological order?
Yeah, that's probably a better explanation.
And Your Honor, based on that and pursuant to Michigan Rule of Evidence 1006, the people did provide a spreadsheet that put them in just regular chronological order, just for the ease of reading. I do have that and have it marked as the companion to Exhibit 34 for the court. But I did want to provide the original messages so that there would be nothing taken out of context. And I would just ask you to look at that page and verify that those are the same messages that are part of the 9 pages previously. Exhibit 26 from you.
Yes.
Now, I know it's kind of small print, but I'm gonna ask you to look at that final page, the spreadsheet.
Okay.
And can you tell us what columns are on that sheet, sir?
Columns would be evidence, Twitter name, Twitter ID, sender ID, recipient ID, type, sent, text, ID, and conversation ID.
And is there a Twitter ID that is specifically associated with Michelle Maddox?
Yes.
And what is that Twitter ID?
602044453.
And the other ID that is involved in that conversation, can you tell us what that is?
Well, there's two, there's sender ID and recipient ID. So sender ID would be from the sender, and then recipient ID would be the other X, it's referred to as X now, their account.
Is one of,
ID.
well, what's one of the items?
The sender ID.
No, what's the number?
Oh, the number would be 602-04453.
And is that the same number that is associated with the Twitter account of Michelle Maddox?
Yes,
And what is the other number?
the recipient ID number. We've got several different ones here. Would you like me to?
One.
Or, oh, the highlighted ones you're referring to
No, it's the other number.
would be 431-22-82-894.
During your investigation, were you able to identify who that Twitter ID number was associated? The 431 number.
Yes, but I'd have to refer to my notes on that.
Let's just make it clear. It wasn't one of the false light defendants, was it?
Not to my recollection. No.
Good. Now, I'm gonna ask you to read this conversation, but I need you to identify when you're reading it if Ms. Maddox is the sender or the recipient.
Okay.
And before you do that, the first message that's sent in this conversation, what was the date of that post?
12/27/2020.
And the last date, well, the date of the last message is what?
12/27/2020.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to start at the top and remember identifying whether or not Ms. Maddox is the recipient or the receiver. I mean, the sender or the recipient, excuse me.
Okay. First message, she is the sender.
The first message?
Are we just talking about the high? There's
No, not
a
that.
lot of material here. So the very first message is ones that are
Very
highlighted.
first
Okay.
message.
I'm sorry, before we start, who's this with? I'm sorry, Miss Maddox.
Ms. Maddox,
And who? Or you can't say?
not a defendant.
Somebody else, unnamed person, you're saying. at this
Well,
point.
we can pull it up, but it would take time.
Oh, okay, I just didn't know if I missed that, I'm sorry. Trying to figure out.
It would
context.
be helpful at some point in time to know who the communication is with. Thank you.
So sender ID, first number would be 431-228-2894. Would you prefer that I just say that it's not Miss Maddox is the sender? To shorten this or? Hello, Michonne, I wanted to ask if your electoral votes have been sent to DC and the VP, question mark. Some are saying they were not sent. Max. Ms. Maddox responds, we signed all the documents in our Michigan GOP headquarters, they were witnessed, notarized, and sealed in envelopes by attorneys for Trump, period. I was told they were being mailed that same day, certified mail. When you say, quotes, some are saying, end quotes, do you mean Michigan specifically, question mark? This again, Mrs. Maddox, that makes me very nervous. This one is the recipient responding. No, just internet rumors. And somebody else responding. I wanted from you if it was true or not. If you say they were sealed and mailed, per Trump lawyers, that is gold. But I don't trust our party leaders, period. My fear would be that they followed through with everything and then maybe did not mail.
And who sent that post? The one you just read?
That. It looks like it's Michonne. It is Michonne. I misunderstood because they're slightly off. The lines are slightly off.
You know, I think it would be easier if the judge just reads.
I'm following up on this. Chartier suggested beginning to sound, and we didn't know that until we started reading. If there's like an unindicted possible co-conspirator,
No.
or we need to know who that person is. We can look that up. That might help.
He's supposed to look that up on the documents he has there. Is that what you're saying? Who the conversation is being held with?
I believe that's in his documents as part of his investigation, which is why I was trying to move this along.
Okay, and all of these documents were turned over to,
It's-
but they need to know exactly what conversation this is specifically.
So just to be clear though, so we, at least I can say, I didn't get like this excerpt. So we may have gotten 70,000 pages of Ms. Maddox messages. And we were told that there would be social media excerpts admitted, but we didn't know, for example, it was this page so that we could go through.
Agreed. And if you got the volume of text message communications or metadata, why would you go through all of that? So we do need him to be prepared to tell us what conversations he's reading from.
Well, I can tell you right now, the other person in the conversation is not involved in the investigation, but the messages just give context to Ms. Maddox's answers. That's the only importance of the other half of this conversation.
Okay.
And
Your Honor, rather than take people's word for it, I prefer to know who it is. If the investigator knows who it is.
you can find out.
Whenever there's a break in the action, my guess is Agent Shock can find out, I would assume, right?
Well, we're gonna take a break now because we've been sitting for longer than an hour.
Should we just take a break now?
We're definitely gonna take a break now. It's about 6 minutes to 3 o'clock. So we'll let Agent Shock look through his information, and then should he need to have time to use the restroom or anything, he can do that, and then we'll go back on the record.
Thank you.
record. And the question or the inquiry was whether or not we could provide, or the witness could provide information as to who this conversation was with. Are you able to provide that information?
Would you like me to get? Yes.
Okay, can you provide that information? Who was the conversation with?
So there, I can't give you a name. It's a direct message. And because it's a direct message, it gives you an ID number. And I was not able to determine who that ID number is without a search warrant.
Okay, are you able to provide that ID number to counsel so they could identify what section of the evidence you're talking about?
Yes. So I have, again, Mrs. Maddox ID number is 602-04453. Recipient ID number that she's communicating with is 431-228-2894.
And as far as the complete return, the messages as they were provided to us from Twitter in reverse chronological order can be found in the return on pages 271 and 279.
Thank you.
I can begin right where we left off. I got confused on the rows lining up with one another. I'll start with this row.
One second. Yeah, just in the interest of time, I think it would just be easier if the court reads the exhibit. That way we don't have to take the time to take that on the record. It's already an admitted exhibit.
I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
Here's one.
Oops. You need a paper. I got one.
Your Honor, at this time, we will pass the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Two things. One is Ms. Crino and Ms. Logan and I, Ms. Crino collaterally kind of flagged that I may have been misinterpreting the government's intent on Exhibit 26. And so I did speak with Ms. Logan because I was. So Exhibit 26, those are messages between Ms. Burden and Mr. Haggard. My understanding was that those messages were being used by the declarant, being Ms. Burden. That is not the case. And so I want to make sure that my objection is clear on the record. Obviously, Mr. Haggard's statements can be used against Mr. Haggard, but Ms. Burden's statements should not come in the case against Mr. Haggard. I anticipate the argument that they are co-conspirator hearsay statements, so they would be admissible. But in looking at Exhibit 26, the UTC is essentially 5 hours ahead of where we are with Eastern Standard Time. So it puts it in the 4 o'clock range, which is long after the signing of this document. Idle chatter is not a statement made in furtherance of the conspiracy, which I put forth is what is going on in Exhibit 26 between two people. So I have it. So my argument and my objection is that Exhibit 26, Ms. Burden's statements can come in against Ms. Burden, Mr. Haggard's statements against Mr. Haggard, but they should not be crossing over.
That was always my understanding of how it was being admitted, though.
Well, I just have to correct something. Exhibit 26 is not in UTC.
I thought it was in UTC.
It's in Eastern.
Okay, even better. So then that's late at night then. I thought he said they were UTC, but it may have been a different exhibit. So perfect. Then it's even it's even then, it's in the 9 o'clock PM range. So that was my understanding as well, that Ms. Burden's against Ms. Burden, Mr. Haggard's against Ms. Haggard. I think it's a break. There was clarification that that's not how the government intended to use them.
I think we're missing each other, but saying the same thing. As far as Ms. Burden's statements as to your client, Mr. Haggard, Ms. Burden's statements are only admissible to give context to Mr. Haggard's statements. And as it relates to Mr. Haggard's statements against in conjunction with Ms. Burden's statements, they're only meant to give context to Ms. Burden's statements. But it is essentially Mr. Haggard's statements against Mr. Haggard, Ms. Burden's statements against Ms. Burden, but they have to be read together to give context to the conversation.
So I still object to that. Because I'm looking at the hearsay rules and I don't see a context exception. So I still object to Ms. Burden's statements coming in against Mr. Haggard.
Okay, well, I don't think she's not saying they come in against Mr. Haggard. They're coming in only for the purposes of the declarant, which is the rule. But what she's saying is, my understanding of what she's saying at least, is that I can't just read Mr. Haggard's statements without reading the others. Otherwise, I won't have context. But at this point, they've both been admitted anyway, so we won't have an issue with context. But they're not being coming in under a context exception. They're being coming in only as it gives, only as a statement from the party declarant. And that was my original understanding anyways.
Yes.
You still have the exhibit?
I still have the exhibit, and that's exactly what I'm saying. I think
so it cleared it up even more on the record. I thought it was clear at the break, and then it turns out it wasn't clear. Your Honor, just to be, and I guess speaking of being clear, is the court inclined to have us start with agent shock today? Because my understanding is we are not going to finish the cross at all today, or come back fresh and start with agent shock.
We're not gonna finish the cross today? No.
No.
What do you mean?
Been chatting with all the lawyers.
I'm sure this side is usually long-winded anyway, so. Any particular attorney on that side, I just left at the podium. That side of the podium typically, really wants to flush things out. So it is 3:30, which was my hope to be done anyways. So couldn't possibly be your hope because you're going with all this evidence. And so nonetheless, this is a good breaking point because we haven't done any cross. We clarified that exhibit. We need to do a break, and we need to go ahead and clear a week of my docket, it looks like, so we can finish this. Because my understanding is that there will be defense witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. How many witnesses do you anticipate calling?
So probably 2. There's a possibility of 3, although I think the third one probably will. We haven't gotten contact and context for it, and I don't know. I can explain who it is.
Okay, 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
How many do you anticipate calling?
None.
Do you anticipate calling any?
No, I don't.
Do you anticipate calling any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Maybe 1.
Maybe 1, so possibly 2, possibly 4.
And then at this point, we just intend to cross-examine or question the witnesses who are called by other.
I'm sure I think it's everybody.
Okay.
2 possible 4. I feel like I'm playing a spades game. Okay, sounds good. So we need to do cross and redirect of detective. You got calling rebuttal witnesses?
no.
Okay, so then, let me get 3 days. We'll clear a docket if necessary. And we're looking in March.
And while she's looking, just a little bit of info, and I don't know if they'll tie in, but okay, I'm just going to tell you that the one witness is, you already know, Mr. Langefeld. The other is Ken Chesbro.
Okay.
And Ken Chesbro is a lawyer. He's interviewed extensively. We're going to do some cross-examination with Investigator Shock about that interview, but his lawyer gave some dates of availability. So I'd like to provide those with the court to see if that would jive with the 3 days you're going to put this down for.
Maybe. Okay.
So those are March 5th through 7th. March 25th, and April 1st through 10th.
So,
that week.
yeah, so he is like pushing for that.
I have a trial also set that Tuesday.
Okay, so that week's out.
Okay.
Yeah, the March 5th week is good, but I don't know, obviously with the court's docket,
Yeah.
but not March 25th.
March 5th is okay. How, I know, I'm sure the court doesn't want to push it out this long, but how about April 8th week?
I'm supposed to start
I can't,
next April 8th.
I can't do that week. I can do the week before.
I'm in South Carolina. the week before.
For trial?
To stay married.
We're around the Saturday.
So,
Okay. No, I can't, I'm not gonna be able to accommodate everybody's vacation and personal schedules. That's just not possible. And I was supposed to start the other group in April, but I obviously will push that out. So I'm gonna actually give them 1 week straight anyways. March 5th, you said didn't work for you, your schedule, which is a little soon for us too, because we already have a full week docket. And then the other time the attorney was available was in April,
Yeah. But
and then the end of March.
25th. But that was.
There's 2 people that are in trial that week. Okay, and then you could do the first week of April?
Yes, Your Honor.
Second week of it. Oh, you can't do the second.
She
I
can
can't
do the
the
first week, not second.
I can do the first week, but not the second,
I can't do the first week.
because of court, that's a.
And neither of you can do the first week of April.
just bring it to the court's attention that that's Easter, that March 31st is Easter, so that I think the court's closed. Or I believe it used to be.
Good Friday to be closed.
Is it
Yes,
Monday?
Good Friday.
Oh, okay.
But you said the second week of April, but someone's in trial, I thought.
She's in the 8th on a case that's been hung twice.
Yeah, she's got
No, that's.
second week, that's in March though.
Oh.
Right, so the week of April, we have a client who's in custody and a full week, well, it starts on Tuesday of a preliminary exam that's been scheduled since November.
That's the second week of April.
That, correct, it starts on April 9th. It's a murder case in Lenawee.
Your issue with the first week of April was Easter?
So that's, I can't wait, it's family vacation, Your Honor. If I need to move it, I can explain it away to my, or, you know, I can make it work. I have a job to do. I recognize that, and I appreciate the court taking the time.
I have traveled that week too.
Third week of April.
That works.
I'm out.
Is that the
Oh, no,
April 15th?
I'm out to State Bar. Where am I going?
Oh, you're still trying to take off? I don't know. We should stay off the record. Oh.
What day? Oh, the Friday. Friday, I don't have to worry about Friday. I just have a meeting on that Friday. Oh, okay. Third week of April?
Can't help it.
Yeah, Monday the 15th.
So I'm actually scheduled to be in trial with Judge Dragoncheck. However, I don't know that, A, that it's going to go, because I don't know if we're first up or not. And B, maybe the court could be like, hello, Judge Dragon.
Third week of April at the homicide trial in Wayne County.
First week of April it is then, because we don't have another choice. We're not gonna be able to accommodate everybody's schedule. So, let's see.
Travel with my son. Paid for it, so international travel.
Oh, you're on vacation too?
Yeah, we're both.
Together. No.
Not together.
We work well together.
I know.
I like them. I like them.
Well, I think at this point, what I need is everyone to give me their trial schedules. And the court is going to clear a docket and you'll get a notice in the mail of your next 3 days.
Should we email that to your judicial assistant?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay.
It'll be after the week of your vacation.
Thank you.
Okay.
For 3 days in a row or a whole?
3 days in a row.
See, any, or is it, would it be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Whatever day I can make work. It could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It could be
Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
22nd.
So to make it easy, so we're not sending you a bunch of dates, are you looking in April and beyond, or are you looking?
I'm looking April and beyond because it doesn't look like March works because there's too many trials already set.
Yeah.
And then there's some trials in April and some extensive travel arrangements. And Judge Simmons love the kids. I don't really care that much about your vacation, but the kids deserve theirs. So we're not gonna have the kids come for me, so we won't bother their vacation. And then we'll push that back, which means I have to push the second set back anyways.
When were they set?
Second week of April, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
So if everyone can give me those dates, then we'll pick dates. April or May.
What we'll do, if that's okay, Your Honor, is tomorrow we'll try and reach out to various prosecutors to see if we're like first up. So for example, Mr. Kraus and I were just talking about a trial, but we don't think we're first up. So we'll get
Agreed.
that information and then we'll supply our dates by the end of the week.
Wonderful. And then you needed an email. Is that
Yes.
correct?
You get it? All right.
Lansing.gov.
Lansing.gov. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it should be lansingmi.gov. Yep. Okay, any other questions today or issues we should address before we leave?
Just something off the record, Your Honor.
Yes, and then I'll give you these exhibits. And we're off the record.